General Brigham, or MGB, one of the most renowned hospitals in all of Boston, all of Massachusetts, all of New England, really. The nurses are going on strike, as you can see by the title here. And as a consequence of them deciding, after failed negotiations for months, to go on strike on this last Wednesday, on the 8th, they were locked out for an entire week until the next Monday. And a bunch of strike nurses were brought in. Now, I'll get into some of the details later. As a consequence, there's been constant protests going outside of the hospital. I'm just here to get into some of the other details in case you're seeing anything online about this MGB strike and you want to know. All right, let's into it. So, current state of events. Like I said, 4,000 striking nurses have been locked out of the hospital, prevented from returning to work. Again, that's what happened as a consequence of them bringing in strike nurses. According to the hospital, they said that they're obligated to give a full 5 days of work. So the nurses, I guess they kicked out. Maybe they didn't have space, but 4,000 nurses are on strike and 1,300 nurses are working in their place. So I don't know if that math even works out. Seems like a good 2,700 could actually still use some work, but that's, maybe my math's wrong. Anyway, they're not allowed to enter, can't use the bathroom. Some of these nurses are pregnant, and that doesn't matter. They have to go down the street, or I think it's about 3 blocks over, to be able to just use the bathroom, even though random guests are allowed. My partner was at this protest, and they let her in, use the bathroom, no issues for her. MGB is refusing to offer more than a 0.5% pay raise. When I look on the articles, it's saying that they're not budging from the 0% pay raise. Thing here is they're negotiating for about 3 things: a 5% pay raise, and there's more specific details, but overall it's generally considered a 5% pay raise. A cheaper health insurance, as the nurses themselves don't have completely inclusive health insurance. It's not the greatest for them, and they work at the hospital themselves. I just find that ironic. And safer conditions for patients. That means nurses that don't have to work such long shifts or consecutive shifts, having enough staffing, a lot of things that, like, anyone who works a job knows that there's a couple of staffing related ways they can make their job smoother. And when that job's not smooth as a nurse, patients are unsafe. Largest nurse strike in Massachusetts history. It's the first time MGB's ever struck. It's insane. And you get there, and of course I'm showing clips of, I went there to drop off water, and I brought some ice. Apparently it's been 90 degrees every day they've been striking. So they've been running around 24 hours straight, 90 degrees heat. A bunch of people bought water, people were bringing pizza, people were bringing food. However, I was the only person who brought ice with my water, so I was getting a lot more people grabbing it because they've been hot. So I brought some Diet Cokes too. We brought some, one of the kids I'm mentoring brought some Italian ice. It's hot, it's really hot out, and these people are normally working in AC. The scabs. If you don't know what a scab is, basically whenever someone's on strike, when they bring in somebody else to work, or people who are not joining the strike, they're called scabs. Not sure where the term comes from. Maybe I'll go into a history of striking, and then I'll cover that later. One of the quotes, this is from the Boston Globe. Wow, I've got a parentheses here. We're not going to add it now. We're already in the video. I'm from Texas, where if we don't like something, the hospital quickly shows us the door, she wrote. These Boston nurses hate us already. Find that a little interesting. It's hey, look, you guys have the right to strike. We don't have the right to strike. That's true, though. You come from an area where you're better off if you just go work somewhere else instead of advocate for your rights. However, what you do is worse for me. I don't care if someone who doesn't have a job would make $1,000 in a week to do my job for a week, especially if I was only getting about $500 for a week of work. I'm not sympathetic towards you, especially if I'm striking to get not even that $1,000 per week, to get $600 per week, some better insurance and better working conditions. Anyway, I'm very concerned about this Massachusetts strike. One of the replacement nurses wrote on Facebook Tuesday, "Why are these Brigham nurses running around the city manipulating patients and families into believing that nurses are filling in are not competent?" Now, here's the thing. Necessarily, you are less competent than the nurses who have been working there. One of the lead, the is it the lead of the union? Someone who's like high in the union has been working there for 40 years. You are not as good at working in that hospital with this staff, with these doctors, with the security system in this layout, with all of the organizational structures that happen in a business than someone who has been working there for 40 years. You don't know the area. You haven't been there. You'll be there for a week. You'll be gone. You can't learn things well enough. You just can't. It's not even a matter of how good you are at your job. Like, the best person at their job doesn't show up week one as productive as someone who's even average at the job who's been there, because you don't know the system. And especially a complicated system as the healthcare system. You can't just provide, let's say another quote, this is on the other side, you can't just provide a manual to these nurses and say, make sure we're following all the procedures, says Vasily Malios, a 37-year-old teacher from Winthrop, who is in the NICU with his newborn son. The Brigham nurses bring both science and art, and they have an understanding of who our child is from one day. My apologies. This continued. Hospital officials say they were obligated to provide at least 5 days of work to the replacements, prompting Brigham to lock out nurses at least to Monday. I don't understand why you had to lock them out, though. You brought in 1,300 nurses, 4,000 nurses are on strike. Don't see how that makes sense. I don't get that logic there. But hey, look, I'm not a hospital multimillionaire, so maybe I don't understand how these things work. By the way, I believe I'm not mistaken, raises, there's a number, I'll put this in post. I think it's like $36 million in like some of the executive salaries and pay raises. And I think the CEO currently, I forgot to put this data point in, is making is 8.6 million a year in salary. This is a non-profit institution. You don't need 8.6 million to live in Boston. Even the nurses, that if they have an average income of roughly $100,000, that might sound fucking crazy to you. You don't live in Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, Massachusetts is one of the most expensive places on the planet that you can live. It's one of the most expensive places in America that you can live. And ergo, it makes it one of the most expensive places on the planet. These hospitals are not located in these low income areas with low cost of living. There's no cheap place to live in Boston anymore. It's got the most expensive housing in America. We're including many parts of California, right? Like, it's just more expensive. We have a lot of tech sectors, fin sectors. It makes it really expensive. So $100,000 goes straight to rent and other general expenses. Also your healthcare, your nurse, of course. A lot of these nurses happen to be women. Their women's healthcare is more expensive than men's healthcare. Also, men often don't take care of themselves and they just die and a bunch of stuff later. So $100,000 may sound like a lot, but its effective usage in another area goes a lot further. That's why you may be able to, if you're making $60,000 in another state, which you still might not be making $60,000, and that might sound like a raise you. Completely understand. A lot of these nurses are also working multiple consecutive 12-hour shifts with their actual hours worked. That per hour rate, it's a little bit closer to making probably like $20+ an hour, maybe like $20, maybe $25, with a consecutive 12-hour shifts worked. They're not getting paid by the hour. Sorry, again, I'm trying to explain an argument that it hasn't even happened yet. Anyway, I stand behind these nurse strikes, but I don't feel one bit bad about going in and taking care of those patients and making some good money to do it. Look, they are taking care of patients in the place of these nurses, but it's not the nurse's fault. It's the hospital who chose to do that. Hospital decided to work out a contract with the strike nurse organization and requires them to work 5 days, or the state required to do that. Strike nurses have some weird setup. Find some other arrangement. Find some other way. Pay out those nurses for those days and let the regular nurses come back in. You don't have to make it worse for the patients. Because as much as these strike nurses would like to pretend, they don't have the ability to be as effective as nurses who have been working there for years and know the system better than them. Like, a very important detail, like the nurses who are offended that the actual nurses who work there are saying that they're not as competent, like, you're the one who's actually being offensive by pretending that you could potentially be as good as a nurse who's been working there for decades. you could be as good as them with none of the experience in that particular environment. That means you just think all of these Boston nurses ain't shit. They must fucking suck because you could just pick it up in a week. You guys are just fucking geniuses somehow. All right. Anyway. All of them smarter than me, of course. Like, I'm just a guy with a business degree who's doing videos on YouTube. But I don't want y'all pretending that the problem lies in the nurses who are complaining that you guys don't have the ability to do what they can do. It's just true. From the Commonwealth Beacon, we submitted a lengthy proposal and continue to wait from the MNA's response. Pastor wrote, our proposal preserves the 5% annual pay increase nurses receive as they move through the wage scale and builds on approximately 55% average growth in Brigham nurse wages over the past 5 years. We believe it appropriately recognizes our nurses in important contributions while balancing our responsibilities to sustain patient care and our broader mission for the long term. That's on behalf of the nurses. We've submitted a lengthy proposal to preserve the 5% annual pay increases. Again, that's not a change to the system. Like, this is what they were receiving during the whole COVID era. They want to keep that. And that is a no-go for them, apparently. They want no more pay raises. Why pay raises might be important, something called inflation's happening. If they're not getting some level of pay raises, for one, it's not just about making more money. It's about two important things. Inflation, it's more expensive to live every year in every country, but specifically in America. And their health insurance got more expensive as a result of the way that their health insurance contract, which is through MGB, is negotiated. So they need even more money to pay for that health care. This wouldn't give them more spendable cash. This just makes them not suffering. From the Boston Herald, the work stoppage of the Brigham Hospital. This is from a lot of stuff where the MGB is going back and forth trying to pretend that the nurses are causing issues. Work stoppage at the Brigham Women's Hospital MGB home care sites began Wednesday when Massachusetts Nurses Association members voted to strike after months of failing contract negotiations. 450 MGB home care clinicians called a 7-day strike to last through July 15th at 8 a.m. In internal communications, MGB officials responded to what they called false claims that picketing nurses were forced to cross the picket line to help a patient with medical emergency. Calling it a false claim, that's crazy. The actions by the picketing nurses directly interfered with the emergency response efforts, creating unnecessary risk for the patient, who fortunately did not have an adverse outcome. So MGB is claiming that the nurses who've been doing this job for years, who know the patients they're talking about, because the patients have been at this hospital, who've currently been at this hospital, they know these staff, saying that they're causing an issue by trying to respond to someone who's having an emergency. And MNA, this is supposed to say continued at the top. I made a mistake. An MNA spokesperson said the nurses called for code blue because of a medical emergency. Code blue's really bad, horrible situation. It's not good. I'll look that up after. I'll flash it on screen what a code blue is. No one responded from inside, Markman said, adding 2 nurses had to cross the line to bring the patient inside to get them to the appropriate place. The replacement staff couldn't even use their badges to get into the elevator and did not know where to go. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. Like, just functionally moving through your building, you're not familiar with it. You'll be slower to navigate a building that you do not recognize. Even if you read it on a map, you got a map of the school, your first day of school. Do you just know how to get everywhere instantly? Or do you have to actually learn to navigate it, right? It's just, you're slower. And it's such a high stress emergency situation. Okay, that's the last tab, so we'll wrap it up. Switching tabs. Oh, my hair's doing the thing again. That's all right, I don't care. Well, I guess I care a little bit. That's not too long a video. But there'll be more updates on my shorts and my TikTok feed, but this has just been the beginning of the saga for the nurses, because we don't have any progress on their actual negotiations. I assume that after this following Monday, they'll be back working and things will return to normal in some way, but this isn't going to end. They're probably going to have to strike again. And will the hospital just keep shelling out money to strike nurses instead of just
They can't afford that. It's cheaper to just keep giving them the same pay raises you're already giving them because you're a hospital that's making more money. And I looked at their balance sheets every year. The revenue does keep going up at a relative rate to the cost of the employees going up. It's actually not becoming proportionally more expensive to work them because you're making more money. That's how the general economy works. As you make more money, your employees cost more money because inflation's happening everywhere. And if you keep doing the pay raises and other companies keep doing the pay raises, it matches inflation and then we all end up being fine. It's other countries that have to deal with the economic fallout of that. Anyway, that's all. If you like what you saw, leave a like, do subscribe. Just kidding. Oh, I messed it up. If you like what you saw, leave a like, leave a subscribe, do a crime. Just kidding, don't do a crime. And I'm out.